Alright, so here's more of the mega map of my Veins of the Earth campaign. So, they started up here at D2, at D1, at the chain here. That's the chain that came down from Deep Carbon Observatory. And the next hex below there was where Grottaville is, the first village they found. And then below that, or actually south of there, is the Amazon village. And then there's the non-men village, which I showed you the map to previously. And the halfling village there. And so, yeah, so this square here, it's mostly inhabited by Amazons and barbarians and centaurs who think they're in Tartarus, but they're mushroom men villages near the fungal path. And they didn't explore this area much. They wanted to go this way, where there was some adventures here, including Dvargir and Adaros and the Reptile Cave, Mirrors. And then they continued on down here, where they met some more mushroom men and went to the Ulm city, the old mushroom men city. And then they ended up following the Crack to the Alphadal city, where they had some adventures there. But they didn't explore the upper part of this square much at all, so they didn't meet the Trilobite Knights. Or the Deep Janine, they never met them. So that's the broad strokes. And from there, after they left the Alphadal city, they didn't take their time in this, and so I never did finish mapping it out, but this map here, it was mostly humanoid type races. So when they went down deeper, the races became less like humans. There were trolls. That was one of the most human ones, but the Cambrian were down here. Then the Archerons. And there was a city of slime that they did briefly visit. In Deep Carbon Observatory, one of the characters was playing a cleric, and he converted a green slime to Christianity. And so when they got down here, they discovered that the green slime city was Christian. So. There's an Archeron city down here, which they just passed through briefly on their way to D1, Descent to the Depths of the Earth. So they didn't really see the other part of this with the various creatures that live there. On this one, I didn't even get around to populating yet. And same with this. It didn't populate this much at all. And they never went there. So that's the broad strokes. So if we want to go deeper, the book has a guide on how to map for detailed maps. So first of all, there's a way to randomly generate the maps, and you use this to notate a chamber in the cave with, north, east, southwest, ceiling, and floor. That shows you where the passages connect to the chamber. Now, if you want to do the size of the chamber, you put a little Roman numeral, with 1 being a 10 foot by 10 foot approximately chamber, 2, 20 foot by 20 foot, 3, 30 foot by 30 foot, 4, 40 foot by 40 foot, 5, 50 foot by 50 foot, basically the size of a house. If there's a plus, it's bigger. It's about the size of an office building. That exclamation point is a gargantuan cave. Now, the connections between the chambers If it's a solid line, it's a walk or a shaft. A walk is a passage that if it's horizontal, it's big enough you can walk upright in it. Now, if it's a dotted line, it's a crawl or a chimney. A crawl is a space so small you have to crawl on your hands and knees. A chimney is a vertical space that you can put your back against one wall and your feet against the other and just go up or down it pretty easily. Now, if it's a jagged line, this is a squeeze. If it's horizontal, this means it's too small for you to crawl on your hands and knees. You gotta slither like a snake or a lizard. And if you kill an enemy in it, you might not be able to get past them. And the swirly marks represent something special. There's several special things. One is a traverse, which is where there's a crack and a ledge, and you're walking on the ledge with your hands against the opposite wall. Another is a sump, which means it's filled with water. It might be partially filled so you can wade through it, or it might be almost completely filled, in which case you have to swim and hope you find an air pocket. Or it could be a breakdown, which is basically a pile of rocks and you have to slither through the cracks between them. So this is how it all fits together. And somebody's made a computer program that I haven't been able to make work, so I had to hand draw my maps. So this is the broad strokes, and when I first entered here at the chain, I had them wander around until I used up their light. Their improvision had failed. They're wandering in the dark, so I got to roll on the I'm lost chart. And eventually they found somebody with some lanterns. With a whale oil lantern from the Nightmare Sea. And it would sing to them when it was lit. And so if you fell asleep while it was lit, you'd have to make a saving throw to wake back up. And so once they had a map, once they had light, then navigation became possible. So the red marks represent the levels of darkness. There were, there are 12 levels of darkness, and level 1 is the ordinary darkness you find in your average dungeon. And one of my house rules that halflings had 30-foot infravision that would work in level 1 darkness. Level 2 darkness is darker than that. It's so dark that halfling infravision fails, but elves can still see. Level 3 darkness, only dwarves can see in that. Elves and half-elves and halflings cannot see in level 3 darkness. Level 4 darkness, even dwarves can't see. And it runs up to level 12, but I only, at this point, was rolling it on D6. So the red does not represent the levels of darkness, but so there are different levels of darkness. It started here, and there was a chimney down to the next chamber, which was 40 feet across. So they came out 40 feet above the floor of the chamber. Their lights could not see the chamber even from up there. They had to climb blindly down until they found it. And then they found a traverse. It went over to here. And this one had a walk, which they could walk until it became a tunnel that ended up in the ceiling of this room, but it's only 10 feet down to the floor, so that wasn't too bad. It had 3 crawls leading off of it, one of which led to Grottaville, the village that I showed you in a previous video. You know, so I had a whole map of that village, and we had some adventure there in the village. And probably the most valuable thing they traded for in the village was the services of a guide who knew their way around just this page. So, so they knew where to go, and I had populated these caves so that you could ask the guy, well, where does that go? What's there? And they were looking for the deviants, who were the halflings from Brood Mother Sky Fortress who had passed this way before. And eventually, they came to this gigantic room here. From Grottaville down to this gigantic room and down the shaft to danger. And so, I think I can end that because we're at 11 minutes now. So.